is a new episode of Risk and Flow. Today we're going to dive into another entrepreneurial story through risks and their rewards. We will dive deep into my guest story, which today investigates how he is helping businesses and individuals worldwide. We're also going to get a closer look of the future of crypto money and payments. I'm glad to welcome to the studio the product lead of Coinbase and co-founder of Wonder, Justin Gainsley. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jane.
I'm super excited to have you here today, and I'm excited also to hear your story through risks and rewards and up and downs to be entrepreneur and your position at Coinbase at the moment. But before all those exciting details, we want to know, Justin, who are you and where do you come from? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again. I'm Justin. I'm the product lead for Coinbase Commerce. Coinbase Commerce helps businesses accept crypto payments, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about that. My background, I think I've always been very entrepreneurial. From a young age, I wanted to start and build things. I might have gotten it from my dad, who was an entrepreneur. And so for as long as I remember, I've always wanted to bring things out into the world. And so in high school, I was running businesses, in college running businesses. And that really came into form when I started Wander out of college, which was a social media platform to connect intellectually curious people. And that was really my first foray into real entrepreneurship, trying to bring something 0 to 1, bring a product to market. And I think ever since, I've just had that itch to try to solve problems and build things that hopefully help people and add some joy to their lives. And so now at Coinbase, running Coinbase Commerce, while at a big company, certainly has those entrepreneurial elements. We treat these entrepreneurial bets fully 0 to 1. We call them venture bets internally. And so we have complete autonomy to try to take a moonshot swing and solve a problem the same way you would with a startup outside of these walls. So excited to tell you more. Coinbase Commerce is a lot of fun, many ups and downs and full of risks and their rewards. But yeah, pass it back to you and happy to share more about that journey.
That sounds interesting. We're definitely going to hop on that a bit later on this episode. But you mentioned you already established your own business at a young age. You had this kind of entrepreneurial mindset at a young age, maybe from your dad. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more about your family? Where did you grow up, for example? And how was your childhood? Were you like courage to try and do new things and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I think my childhood was probably similar to most others. I played sports. I joined clubs. But I think the thing that, like you said, really kicked off my entrepreneurial itch was seeing my dad build a business as a kid. And I think watching the trials and tribulations of running a business and also kind of the autonomy and excitement and the joy that his business was able to bring to their customers, it must have really kind of run through my blood at a young age. And so I think that's really where I probably got that itch. And before I even knew what starting a business was, I think I was trying to bring things to market. I was probably trying to just emulate my dad. I think when I was 10 or 12 years old, I was drop shipping iPhone cases or trying to start a sneaker business. And I think it was always just, to me, a fun way to test my skills and try to solve a problem. And I'm lucky to have a similar opportunity now in my career.
Yeah, that sounds great. Also, like innovative childhood, you just were allowed to try new things, maybe drop shipping or whatever. It's sports. I think sports always for young people is a good way, and it teaches a lot. As many entrepreneurs who have also been in the podcast, the sports somehow play an important role for their lives. But of course, the parents, the kids are imitating everything what they do, and the people, the closest people around you. So I think that's the most or the biggest impact on you. What do you think? May I ask? Just came to my mind that could Did your dad take any risks, or can you tell anything about when you were a child? Did you see him take any big risks at that time?
Yeah, I think my dad's story is a great one. He started a business himself after graduating college, but had never gotten a formal business education, never went to business school. And I think he really just kind of path found his way to building a successful company. And I think that was one of the lessons that I really internalized was it's not about what you read in the textbooks. It's not about, what you're able to ingest online. It's about just doing things. And, Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, has a saying, which is action produces information. Just going out and doing something is going to teach you enough to make that next step. And so I think part of seeing my dad's process, not relying on a formal business education, but rather just taking risks, taking attempts, taking that next step forward and seeing where it brought him. I think that was part of the inspiration for me as I went out and tried to create my own action.
Uh, that's an interesting perspective. As also the one topic we touch is the education and the entrepreneurship, whether it's good or bad. Yeah, the education that how people who have this drive to do things, they just uh, immerse the information or take the information maybe themselves. They search themselves a lot rather than maybe not relying on the traditional education. And I don't know, back then, how was maybe the world back then when your dad was young? Was the education supported more than maybe go out there and do your thing? But I think it's a good way to have those role models and examples at such a young age. So I'm super inspired already about that part of your story. But what about then? You went to school, right? You said you established your company there. So tell us about that, your education path a little bit.
Yeah, so I attended the University of Michigan. I studied business there. I loved the fact that I was able to study business in the classroom. It's always been what I've been interested in. And so to kind of combine what I was actually being taught with what I was passionate about, I think was useful and did give me a leg up as I ultimately, you know, followed what I was learning. But to your point, I think that education matters a lot less than kind of where your curiosity brings you. I think part of what led me to crypto and part of why I think the things outside of the classroom are more important than things in the classroom is having that sort of intellectual curiosity and being able to kind of follow the interest is ultimately what leads to new ideas, allows you to find the problems that you want to solve. It kind of puts you in the right moments for serendipitous things to happen that can ultimately benefit your career or put you in the right place at the right time. And so I think it really came down to having that curiosity in college. And that was when I was playing around with most of the business ideas, trying to ship and bring things to the world as quickly as possible. And that's where I then founded Wander, which was based on an insight at the time I felt really passionate about and wanted to solve.
Mm, that sounds interesting, and such a young age to have this such a spirit. But I really like that you also enjoyed the school, enjoyed the school bench, but you also wanted to investigate and be creative and make some research for your own businesses. Which leads me to the next question I want to ask, because such a young age, do you think you were, or your mindset was already that time like a risk taker, or have you ever considered yourself as a risk taker?
Yeah, I think to me, the things that are risky, particularly in business or entrepreneurship, are also the things that are most fun or most, exciting. They captivate me. Um, I think with risk comes upside. It comes the opportunity to learn. I think that failure is a necessary part of entrepreneurship. And so to kind of take failure as a given, as opposed to something that feels scary or as a risk, I think was important. And I think that generally, you know, I probably overweighted the downsides of taking risks and underweighted the upsides and the things I could have learned. For example, I think starting a company is something that people feel is really risky, right? If you start a company and it doesn't go well and it fails, are you going to be able to earn an income? Are you going to be able to pay your bills? But really, starting a company makes you a more desirable candidate, right? And so then you might actually get a better job coming out of it. And so the downside is actually really low, whereas the upside is, infinite. And so I think as I started to learn that through college and the more things that I tried and failed at, kind of got used to the fact that failure is a good thing. Failure teaches you a lot. And it got me more comfortable with taking those sort of risks.
That sounds really healthy approach for the risks and especially failure, which is always an interesting topic we might interpret the failure that everything ends on one failure. Because if I think for example, compared to Finland and America, it's like said here, or in Finland we say that normally if you fail or you go bankruptcy or whatever, you are like a failure. But otherwise in America, I think you have to fail or you have to lose your business to be successful at some point. So I think we in America look sort of up those companies or people who have sort of made those maybe bigger failures and something like that. So that's sort of the difference maybe in our societies.
Yeah. And I think one of the lessons that I probably learned as I tried more of these entrepreneurial bets was just to fail more quickly, right? Failure is going to be inevitable in some shape or form. And so part of the lesson was, instead of putting all my eggs in one basket and striving to succeed as much as I could, putting all the ammo behind one thing and then failing and saying, oh, what can I learn from it? Being more tactical and trying to fail more quickly, figure out where am I at the highest risk of failure, and go out and do something. And I think that, in college, I had the benefit of being able to try as many things as I could, fail really quickly, and ultimately learn and iterate in that way. And so I think that was one of the lessons, was just having that willingness and awareness to fail really quickly.
That's quite a good insight to failure, to do the failure more quickly so you can just learn and move on. So that's a quite great of a tactic for you. But what about, you said were you 16 when you established your company, the Wonder?
I had played around with a few companies at that age. Wander, I was a little older. I was in college at that point.
Right.
And what we were trying to do with Wander was, we had this insight that intellectually curious people like myself loves talking with others about content, loved sharing content with these group chats of all this, podcasts and blog posts and all these things that we found really fascinating. And there was no good way to share this with others and see what others were reading. And so that was the problem we were trying to solve. And so we shipped an app and we built a website, and we were able to bring in, I think, a couple thousand users. I still use the product. It's helpful for me to keep track of the things I'm reading. But it was not a success. Unfortunately, building a social product was really hard. But another good failure that taught me a lot about how to build products that people love, and, how difficult social can actually be.
And were you surrounded by the same kind of people? Maybe were you friends also, that kind of entrepreneurial mindset, or how was that? Well, were you alone with these thoughts, or how was it?
I think being in college at the time, it was a really great place to be surrounded by other entrepreneurial people, other intellectually curious people. I think that's one of the unique benefits of going to a university or being in a business school, is that generally these people are like-minded. They're pretty ambitious. They want to go try things. They're excited about the things outside of the classroom. And so I think I was lucky to be surrounded by those sort of people. And, lucky now at Coinbase to have a similar sort of entrepreneurial fire in my colleagues, where we can rattle ideas off each other and really try to build something that helps people and solves real problems.
Right. Yeah, that sounds interesting. And to have those people to surround you and test things and go on and just try. There's nothing wrong, as you said. If you fail, it's a good thing. You learn more quickly and you can move on, and maybe you come up with some better idea. And I actually saw your article, this one, you said that your best learning experience of life when you failed with the when you failed with your company. So before we move on from that, can you just what do you think was the best thing actually on that failure, so to say?
I think there was an immense amount that I learned trying to build Wander and bring it to the world. I'd say one of those lessons was failing more quickly. I think with Wander, we had this vision of like this perfect grand product that took a year to build. And when we launched that and ultimately wasn't something that met the market's need and didn't have product market fit, the big takeaway was we could have shipped 12 smaller attempts over the course of those 12 months, learning along the way so that by the time we get to month 12, there's something that's actually really valuable for people and that they really love. I think that was the really big learning and something I'm trying to bring a lot in Coinbase is ship small, try to find the core problem. And if you can't find it with your first attempt, keep trying more iteratively, more quickly so that you can fail fast and hopefully find the, bit of product market fit more quickly. I'd say that was a big takeaway. I think just as a whole, one of the benefits of starting something while in college was young people, they are probably have some Dunning-Kruger. They're more confident than they should be. And I think
Oh,
that was
I
also,
lost your voice.
oh no,
I was there. Yeah, I lost you for a moment. Yeah, I just heard the product market fit and something after that. Can you, if you can remember, can you repeat that part?
apologies about that. And please let me know if that happens again. Um, I think the TLDR there is being able to ship things more quickly, being able to fail more quickly, and having a more iterative approach to find a problem that I want to solve as opposed to a solution that I think might solve a problem that is yet to be really validated.
It sounds you're really like active person to try things and maybe fail. And I don't know if I, as you mentioned already, you might not think that the failure is maybe nor it's good or bad. It's just the one thing that happens and then you move on. You already mentioned your dad as an inspiration for you, um, to maybe become an entrepreneur. But can you tell us what was the inspiration, or if there was an inspiration to become an entrepreneur, or was it already like uh, uh, seeded on you when you were a child?
I think there are, I very much look up to the great entrepreneurs. I think that Brian Armstrong, the founder of Coinbase, is an incredible one. I've had the privilege to learn from him here at Coinbase. But I think for the most part, that sort of itch to go build and try to solve problems was something to some extent innate to me and something that I was excited about before I even knew what I was doing. And I think that over time, it's just about following the things that give me energy. And luckily, building products 0 to 1 is that thing.
Mhm. Yes, yes, that's all inspiring. And the person was he your sort of mentor, or what type of person
I've
at
had
the
that.
Coinbase, as you mentioned? Yeah.
Oh, at Coinbase in particular, I mean, I've been lucky to have some great mentors here. I think Coinbase is conducive to entrepreneurial talent. I think we've done a great job bringing in founders to come run products here. So I'm lucky to have learned from many people who have had their own ventures and had their own startups, failures, successes, and so on. And so the wide range of people here that I'm lucky to learn from. And the one I called out was Brian Armstrong, our founder. Uh, he, despite this being a mass, a large company now, several thousand employees, he's very in touch with the 0 to 1 products here at Coinbase. And it's really an honor and a joy to be able to learn from him and kind of bring commerce to light with his guidance.
That sounds really inspiring environment where you're working at the moment. I'm interested to know how this young guy ended up with his own entrepreneurial um, fails and successes to end up to the Coinbase. What happened between those years after college and you're establishing your own company?
Yeah, so I tried to make Wander a success. It was a joy to build. I was really proud of what we built, but I don't think it really solved a true pain in the market. Or I think attempting to build something social before having a tool that someone really loved was probably a mistake. Of course, tons of learnings from that experience. But following Wander, I was really interested and curious about crypto. I wanted to find something entrepreneurial at a more established company, and I was really lucky to find Coinbase and be able to join as a product manager. For about a year, I ran some sets of products in our consumer in our Coinbase app. And then I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time and be able to take on Coinbase Commerce, which is a much earlier stage and more of a moonshot bet. And I've been running commerce now for about 2 years.
Mhm. That sounds great, and this is quite interesting because normally those entrepreneurs, or I would say normally, but maybe more in general, people are those 9 to 5 jobs, and then they jump to the entrepreneurship. But you have been entrepreneur, and now you are working as a product lead at Coinbase. So do you see any difference on those two worlds? Even though you mentioned the Coinbase is like an entrepreneurial hub, but is there any differences in those corporate and entrepreneurial worlds?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly a speed that you can operate when building your own startup. I think that, you know, when you're just kind of a few young kids and an idea, you're able to use AI coding tools and you can just ship like crazy. Um, there's a certain sort of fire, certain sort of momentum that brings, and I think that's certainly something that I love and will get back to at some point in my career. Uh, but I do think Coinbase is unique in that we really have a startup culture, particularly for these 0 to 1 bets internally. There's very little bureaucracy. There's very little to slow us down. I think pretty much every time we talk to the CEO or other leadership, the question they ask is, what can we do to help you move faster and to help you move more like a startup? And so I think Coinbase is unique to have a program and have a culture that's like that. I'm not sure there are other big companies of this size that have that sort of environment. I've heard of some kind of earlier stage startups that have that sort of mentality where they take a product lead and a few engineers and just let them run with their own ideas. But I think it really comes down to having extreme ownership, extreme autonomy, and just a culture that rewards, this willingness to take risks and willingness to move at breakneck pace.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I also think that way, the more freedom, or sort of the more freedom you get, the more innovative and the more, you can get those ideas out there. You can brainstorm with your coworkers and be inspired and try also and you also are allowed to fail and they don't sort of punish you as a company if something happens, rather than they give you that freedom. And as you mentioned, they ask you, how can they make you, improve? How can they make your work better at that moment? So I think there are a lot of similarities what you have lived, on those younger years and now at the Coinbase. If you think your path, on that young boy to this day, I would like to ask about the risk and how do you think, or do you think a risk as a negative or positive, or how is your risk perception? That's what I want to ask. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I think that I've learned over time that the downsides of risk are generally overstated, and that taking risks make the work you're doing more entertaining and more exciting. They kind of add some fire. They give you some reason to maybe work harder or work later or or do more. Um, it also, I think, risk works well with like a level of ownership. And so, for example, with Coinbase Commerce, it's a somewhat risky bet, right? It's very uncertain whether or not this bet is going to pay off, and that gives me the fire to do a lot more than just lead product, right? I like to lead marketing at times, or do sales, or customer support, and do what I can to advance this thing. And so I think with risk comes that sort of excitement, that fire, that drive. And so as I've gone on this path, my I've been able to kind of appreciate risk more and seek it out, because generally that comes with some of these benefits that I mentioned.
Mhm. Yes, that's interesting. Again, interesting insight for the risk, as I always want to ask everyone, how do they interpret it, and whether it's positive or negative connotation, sort of. And for you, I totally see it's a positive thing and it drives you forward. What if I say, if you think about what could have been maybe the biggest risks, or is there any situation on your life that you have um, been thinking that, oh, this is a big risk for me. Can I do this or not?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger risks was actually joining Coinbase when I did. I joined Coinbase in 2022, and at the time, crypto had just gone through a really massive drawdown, a really big bear market. Crypto asset prices had fallen by 80 and 90%. Coinbase was oftentimes not looked at as an amazing company. You know, on Twitter, people would tweet, delete Coinbase for whatever reason. People didn't, weren't big fans at the time. And a lot of people were actually wondering whether or not crypto was going to survive that drawdown. It was probably the largest drawdown, certainly in terms of volumes and dollars, that crypto's ever experienced. Many people thought it might have been regulated out of existence. And so the sentiment at the time was, it could be crazy to join the crypto industry. But I think what excited me about crypto at the time was, with those drawdowns came tons of opportunity to actually build the products and the experiences and the opportunities for myself that in the hype and hysteria of the bull market might not have been the case. And so over the course of the next couple of years building at Coinbase, we were able to build more exciting and better products because of those drawdowns and because it kind of washed out some of the grift and some of the speculation. And I think it's a good example of finding, the right sort of risk at the right time and leveraging that to kind of be a launch pad for the products and careers that I wanted to have.
And how did you actually find about cryptocurrencies, and what made you interested in of this crypto world at first place?
Yeah, I think the thing that drew me to crypto was just how much there was to learn. I've always been curious and I've always loved emerging tech. And crypto was one that I could read about, for hundreds of pages or hundreds of days and never really get the full picture. And that excited me. And so I think that was part of what led me to Coinbase. Was I wanted, at the time I was excited by NFTs and I was excited by decentralized identity and payments and all these different things. And I was like, that's the company I can go to go learn about it all and find the area of crypto that I'm most passionate about and want to spend more time in. So it was really an output of curiosity.
Again, we come to the curiosity and the willingness to create things. I think, as you mentioned also, that was maybe the biggest risk for you to jump on that. And I'm glad you did that, because you definitely, I'm sure you have learned a lot. You have met awesome people for sure. And as you mentioned also, the entrepreneurial environment, which allows you to also investigate and make your own decision also, and take those risks on that. Or it sounds like a safe environment, even though it's quite a risky environment to work with crypto.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think part of the nice thing about Coinbase is, despite it being a relatively risky industry, right? It's an emerging technology. I'd say it's to some extent unproven outside of the more speculative aspects. Coinbase is an amazing platform to build upon, right? I mean, I think we're the most trusted, the largest in the US. It was really a nice way to balance the risks of the industry with kind of the risk of a company that I think is really strong in a place that'll be around for a while.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It that sounds like that. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that you are also like helping businesses and individuals worldwide, as crypto is or can be accessed also maybe in every part of the world. So, how do you think Coinbase and your work there can help people, or what is your main also motivation on that?
Yeah. And so my world is primarily crypto payments. And I think crypto payments are an amazing way to help businesses and their customers. And I'll tell you why. What's amazing about crypto is that it is essentially free, essentially instant. It is global and cross border by default, and it's programmable. And this is really a massive step function improvement on money as it exists today. Today, in the traditional fiat system, transferring money across borders is extremely expensive. Transferring money generally can cost 3, 4, 5% for merchants accepting online. Chargebacks and fraudulent chargeback risk is extremely high. They eat into merchants' margins, and money moves slowly. Money is gated by these gatekeepers. Money is a walled garden. And so crypto is the answer to that. It enables businesses to accept payments that are more global, more cheap, faster, programmable. It's really a step function improvement in money. And so what we're doing with Coinbase Commerce is giving businesses and merchants in particular access to those rails. We're helping them save on costs and access a new global population by accepting crypto payments. And we're helping connect people who are interested in spending their crypto with those same merchants.
Mm, yeah, that's for me personally also sounds interesting, and I would also be interested to learn more. Also, that aspect that also there is I don't know if you're aware, late or for sure you're aware what in here in Europe what happened to those e-change platforms that they needed to sort of identify who were their clients, and with the laws and all that, you need to provide some your ID information, personal information for those companies. What do you think about the anonymity of what comes to crypto? Can it be like guaranteed, or what's your insight on that sort of to the free movement of crypto money or money itself?
Yeah, I think it's certainly an interesting aspect of crypto. I think people who want to remain anonymous, who want to have completely private transactions, should be able to. And I think crypto in time can be a really great tool to do that. I think at the same time, crypto actually isn't the best tool to stay anonymous. Everything is on a public ledger, and so for crimes, for example, there's as a percentage of all transactions, crypto has fewer crimes than cash. And it's because it's actually not a great tool for criminals to use. It's in the public. It's in the open. It's a public ledger. And so I think there's two sides of that coin. I think both it should be a right that if people want to be able to transact in private, they can. But I also don't think that's necessarily the core value of what we're trying to bring to merchants and to their customers. I think it's a lot more about giving them a better rail, giving them something that's modern and more efficient and saves them money. And that's really where we're spending our time.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are a lot of different goals and usages of crypto, and what comes to the criminals also, as you mentioned. Did you, if I got it right, the cash have more criminal criminality in the cash money than crypto?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I can imagine, because yes, like those scams and all the people do. So yeah, I can see there is a sort of good and bad sides for both. But as you mentioned, that maybe crypto shouldn't be the main goal of that money, and that platforms to aim sort of.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think part of the challenge that we have with Coinbase Commerce is it's really apparent to businesses the value that crypto can bring because it saves them money, it saves them time, it introduces a new customer base. I think the challenge is getting the consumer perception to match that sort of business perception, to enable people to think of crypto as modern digital money, as a better way to transact, as something that is going to help their favorite businesses, um, you know, make more, earn more, and hopefully pass some of that value back to them. I think there's a perception piece that we as an industry need to work on. And hopefully we can deliver products that are great enough on their own that people start to learn this is more than just volatility and speculation. And it's more than the perception of like privacy and being anonymous.
Mm. Yeah, and I think nowadays it's not yet that common. At least maybe not in Finland. There's not many shops. Maybe you can go and buy with crypto, or make some. Maybe you can buy a house with crypto someday or something like that. What about in USA in general? Can you use crypto in many places already, or how the crypto money is seen there?
Yeah, I think we have a very long way to go. I would say crypto today represents far less than 1% of all payments, probably far less than 1 in 1,000. Um, but there is a community of people who do love to use crypto to transact. Uh, there are plenty of people who earn in crypto because, particularly if they're earning across borders, if they're doing contracting work or freelancing work, crypto is a more efficient way for them to earn their paycheck. And so we see a lot of usage among that community. There are also a lot of merchants who want crypto rails to succeed because it benefits their business. And so they'll actually incentivize their customers to use crypto when making a purchase, whether that's getting some cash back or getting a gift with purchase. We're seeing that a lot now too. And so I think what's great is we're seeing really massive increase in adoption year over year. Stable coins on their own have had 50x increase in adoption since 2020. It's really incredible the sort of usage we're seeing now with stablecoins. But I think we're starting from a small base. And so there's a lot more that we'll need to accomplish for this to be something that ultimately benefits millions of merchants and hopefully billions of people.
Yeah, that's true. We are still a small percentage who use it, and definitely I think people are more interested, as some of the whole countries might be interested in using crypto, and get more, as you mentioned, those freelancers maybe can get easier pay. You don't have to wait those banks doing the transfer and taking the percentages, and it could take a week or two to get the money, for example, from um, US to Europe, and all that hassle. So I think it's like a more easier and quicker way. You can get your job done in more ease, and maybe you feel more secure, maybe in at least I think about that. Mm.
Yeah. And we hear that from merchants all the time. I was just talking to a merchant the other day who said there are a number of countries from which they can't even accept payments today because the payment rails are either too expensive or simply inaccessible cross border. And so crypto for them is a way for them to meet this new customer base and increase the addressable market of their business. And so I think there are those cases where it's a really pertinent need. And then there's a whole long tail of others where merchants can save money, save time, be more efficient, earn from a new customer base, and so on by leveraging these rails.
Yeah, sure. One actually interesting thing also with the crypto is the sustainability, sort of, because we need energy to produce all these. So do you have any insights on that? Because of course, the situation in the world is so unstable. Anything can happen. anything can happen in any parts of the world. So are we prepared on these kind of risks that can happen?
Yeah, I think that there are a few things to note when it comes to the energy usage of crypto. The first thing is a couple of years ago, most of the most used cryptocurrencies shifted from what was called uh, mining and proof of work to proof of stake. And proof of work was really energy intensive. Bitcoin, the most popular cryptocurrency, still uses proof of work. And this is what uses a lot of energy. Whereas proof of stake, which is where most of the modern cryptocurrencies are being used, what all of the payment cryptocurrencies are now using proof of stake, is drastically more energy efficient. And I think uses maybe one thousandth of the energy that proof of work used. And so I think we're moving in the right direction. And I think the energy concerns are certainly being taken care of. And I think that, and, I don't know what the exact statistics are, but I'm pretty sure that on certain blockchains or with certain cryptocurrencies, it uses less energy to transfer those from one person to another than it would with a fiat counterpart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds all makes sense. Yeah, I think so. What about the risks? How can we prepare, or how can, for example, Coinbase prepare those risks? Because of course you need to have some physical space for producing some energy and all that. So how can you prepare those global risks, sort of?
Well, I think what's amazing about crypto is that it doesn't rely on one individual, person or company or institution to keep the blockchain up and running. It's decentralized, right? It's a community of people that makes this possible. And so millions of people around the globe are contributing to making sure that these crypto networks stay up and running, that they're fair, that there's no double spending, that they are continuing to live up to the promise of, instant, essentially free uh, payments and transactions worldwide. And so luckily we're not alone in making that happen. I think there are millions of people, millions of businesses that have this interest in keeping it going. And luckily I'm not too concerned about these sort of systemic risks of crypto. I think the challenges now are, how do we actually bring value to people and solve their problems with crypto, as opposed to it being about speculation or about strictly being an investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, that sounds really, and that already makes sense. It sounds really like a good way of approaching things. Even though there's the risky side, but there, of course, you can prepare on those. You don't have to be super afraid of, anything like that. So, also, I'm interested, like, I have two more questions for you, in this episode. If I think of the future, maybe, the Coinbase and companies like that. What do you think? Is there any risks, or do you see it in a positive light? What's the future like?
Yeah, I think, kind of as I was hinting at before, one of the big risks we have with crypto is that we really don't move out of this crypto as an investment primary use case. And we miss our chance to make crypto something that really helps people and solves problems outside of investments. And so to lean in there, I would say crypto can increase economic freedom in the world. It can make property rights more accessible. It can help people access a financial system that previously was gate kept or inaccessible to them. It can help people transfer money and funds more quickly and at lower cost. There's all these things that are benefits, but there's still a gap between the products that we have and people actually receiving those benefits. And I think the risk that we have is that we don't live up to it. And so I think where we are spending our time is trying to build beautiful and easy to use products that actually solve these problems, that lean into the true values of crypto, as opposed to just the speculation and the investment. But I think it's a chasm to cross, and it's not going to be easy. And that's probably one of the primary risks we face as an industry, or as Coinbase specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, interested to see what's the future like, and we don't know. Maybe anything can happen, but I keep my fingers crossed because of course I think it's a good way. Maybe not everyone think the crypto is a good thing, but I would say it makes your life, or could make your life easier, and it can be like a tool for you to move more quickly and do things more freely. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, find those fails, and even though some crypto can fail, we don't know. But if it fails, we just maybe come up with something better idea, or stand out on those, and learn more quicker. That's what you said. So I think that's one of the best thing we can do. And I really, really see also the future as in a positive light. Of course, we want to see the positive, not the negative things.
And to your point, I think the burden is on us as the builders in crypto to create products that you don't even have to know that they're using crypto for them to be providing benefit to you. I think that there is this thing that we're thinking about a lot right now, which is the stable coin sandwich. How can we make it so that the user who first entered the flow and the last user who leaves the flow, they don't even know that they're using crypto in between, and that there's value to all of this stuff that we're hiding the complexity, yet we're delivering value to those end users. And so I think the burden's on us. It's not on the world to decide whether or not crypto is useful for them. It's on us to build products that they can't say no to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds really inspiring. One more question for you before we finish this episode, as I want you to one more time to think about your whole journey from your childhood to this day. Would there be any advice that would you give a person who maybe are afraid to take some risk, or maybe want to be an entrepreneur and try to new things? What would be your advice for those people?
Yeah, I would say channeling the advice I've heard from great entrepreneurs like Brian Armstrong. I think action creates information. I think regardless of the risks you see ahead, just trying something, whether that's putting out a tweet or sharing an idea or sharing a piece of writing or building something quickly with an AI tool and seeing how people use it. Just doing anything is going to teach you. It's going to bring you a step closer. It's going to tell you what your next step should be. And so the risks of starting something, the risks of doing something entrepreneurial, you don't have to take it all in at one time. Just take that first step, see what happens, give it an attempt, and those next steps will follow. And so I'd say, don't lean too far into the risks. Don't think too much about the downsides. Just take some action and see where it brings you.
Wonderful. I think those are good words and advice to finish this episode. Justin, I'm super honored to have an opportunity to talk here today, and you to be in the Risk and Flow and talk with me. So I would only say thank you for participating, and maybe I see you soon, maybe in some other time our paths cross and you will be featured again. I would hope so too.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, Jen.
Thank you also for listeners and viewers of Risk and Flow, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye bye.